Hey everybody, it's Ruby here today, and I thought that I would do a book review for War and Peace. This is about 3 months coming. It took me 3 whole months to read this book, and I absolutely enjoyed it, and I wouldn't take those 3 months back, but it has been a long and laborious process. So I will try my best to create the best review possible, but I don't think I can really give it justice with just a couple of minutes that I'll have here. So for anybody who doesn't already know, this is a historical fiction book written in 1869, first published a couple of years before, about the French invasion of Russia during 1805 and then continues on to 1813. So this is the war and the peace of that particular time. So it follows the aristocratic family during that time, and so there's about 20 or 30 main characters of that family and then a lot of sort of side characters. So it is a very dense and very confusing book. So just as a side note, this particular book is the original version. So there has been a lot of discussion and debate about what the original or right version of War and Peace is. And this is because Tolstoy had serialized them in magazines in 1867, I think, which is this one. Which only has 7 volumes, and then I think that he revised it and put it together and put like an 8th volume and epilogues and rewrote it a couple of times. There's a lot of different editions, even just during his lifetime, and then people have obviously translated it and created a lot more of editions too. So there's going to be a lot of debate about it. So to put that into context, I read an earlier version, I guess, up to 7 volumes, and then I read the 8th volume and epilogues in the Gutenberg project, so the online free version. And that's why it also took a lot longer, because I'm like, yeah, I'm finished. Oh, wait a second, no, I'm not. So like all classics, this obviously took me by surprise, and I realized just why everybody loved this book. It draws me in quite a bit. There's a lot of great descriptions. It's very poetic, very well written, and a lot of the characters and interactions between the two characters are almost like the dramas that we get now. So it reminded me sort of Downton Abbey-esque or Tudors, not necessarily because they're historical fiction, but because they're historical fiction with sort of the context of those characters. So they're focused more on the characters than sort of the history around them, if that makes sense. So he definitely did that, and then he also added in the war aspects. So he talked about the battles and people involved and the strategies and what was happening, and then also sort of the historical analyses of what was going on. So he had researched it quite a bit. He looked at historical documents and historians talking about these battles, and tried to sort of look at it in this context and also sort of analyze it. For the just general novel portion, it was pretty awesome. There were interactions that I really liked. There's like all the characters are multifaceted, which I think was fairly surprising, because I sort of read it in the context of 1870. I sort of assumed that all the female characters would just be sort of side two-dimensional characters. I kind of thought that there would be no inclusion of peasants or other sorts of people, that there would be a lot of assumptions and whatever. And it wasn't really the case. He kind of included everybody, and he created a sort of description in which he criticized and also celebrated each person's individual flaws and good things about themselves. So I thought that that was really cool. So a lot of the female characters were very well-rounded and multifaceted, and there was a couple of servants that were included that were said to be sort of a part of the family. And that sort of surprised me too, because Tolstoy isn't known for being fairly nice to women. He had a reputation for being not very nice, and Anna Karenina has apparently been criticized for that, because the main character isn't portrayed very nicely. But I think personally in this this novel, I really didn't see that at all, and when I looked it up, like, I didn't agree with most of the reviews talking about sort of the idea of women in War and Peace. So take that as you will. As for the more battle scenes, I think that personally I could have done without them, just because I didn't know enough about battle strategy to understand anything that was going on. So I kind of knew that they were screwing up. I kind of knew that people were dying. I didn't understand how or why or what really was going on and what could have been done better. So it is something that needs to be taken into account when you're reading it, that either you're going to be extremely confused or you're going to need to brush up on your battle strategy. So that means that I think that there could have been a couple of scenes that were taken out that maybe weren't necessarily included. And then there were a couple of scenes that were absolutely hilarious of people sort of criticizing each other and simultaneously criticizing each other, and then sort of judging each other for the same thing, which I thought was really funny. And he talked about free will and determinism and how our ideas of history change once we look back on them, because we start to try and find a single moment that could have completely changed history, when it was more of like a combination of things that were not necessarily controlled in any sort of way. So I thought that that was a really cool way of looking at it, and definitely opened my eyes, and is one of the reasons that it took so long to read, because it's not just reading a book, it's reading and thinking and analyzing and then going back and reading and thinking and analyzing. And that is, I think, one of the reasons that I regret sort of reading it, is because I didn't read it in the context of a class or in context of analyzing it. I didn't read it just volume by volume. I sort of read it as a whole, which I think could have been done better, just because I think that there's probably a lot of descriptions and a lot of contexts that I probably missed, just because I wasn't properly sort of taking that into account. So yeah, I think that's sort of my advice for reading this book. Is it's going to be great. It's going to be awesome. There's going to be some moments where you're going to have no idea what's going on, whether it's philosophy or war. But at the same time, I think that there's a lot of great information there, and I think that that's sort of the best way to go at it. Hopefully that was understandable. There's a lot of emotions and thoughts I have about War and Peace that probably can't properly be put into a book review this short. And I think the only way I could have actually properly done that is done like papers on it. I guess what I'm trying to say is that it was pretty awesome. It was probably 4 out of 5. I really enjoyed reading it. There were some parts where I'm like, why am I only half done? This is really boring. But overall, it was a good experience. It was well written. I'm glad I read it, and I think that everybody should at some point at least try to read it. And just comment down below if you agree or disagree with any of what I'm saying, if you tried to read it and completely hated it, or if you consider it to be too wordy or too long or too biased or any of that sort of stuff. Of course, we can discuss that. Otherwise, subscribe, like, comment, do your thing if you liked this video, and I will talk to you guys later.